really interesting conversation. And look, as someone who is not Māori, I don't really understand. As you said a second ago, Chewy, I can empathise with what's going on. But there's a situation in Australia today with one of their Indigenous MPs. She came into a speech
Oh,
that
yes.
King
Yeah.
Charles was making and let fly. Now, the reason I brought up Māoridom is as she's not being dragged out, escorted out of the room. We want a treaty. We want a treaty. I was just like, that's really interesting. As much of a problem, and as much as this treaty that we have in New Zealand is not perfect and still creates a huge amount of conjecture between people, parties, races, compared to some other countries, maybe other countries like Australia and their Indigenous people look at it going, if only we had that step. Like there's that old saying that, people who think they've had a home run in life, but they don't know that they started on fourth base. I often say there are people who are still in the car park, sitting in the car, they haven't even got onto the field yet. Maybe the treaty means that Māori are on the field, like they're legally entitled to have the conversation. But there are many who are in the car park who look at what Māori have got, and because it's deemed by them to be maybe better than their situation, they want it. I'll show you. Let's play the clip. It's only about 45 seconds of when she had her voice heard, shall we say.
You committed genocide against our people. Give us our land back. Give us what you stole from us. Our bones, our skulls, our babies, our people. You destroyed our land. Give us a treaty. We want a treaty in this country. You are a genocider. This is not your land. This is not your land. You are not my kids. You are not our kids.
King Charles took it with good grace, I guess. Everyone's entitled to protest. Yeah, so we want a treaty. I thought it was a particularly interesting use of the word. Wondering, obviously, cousins across the water, referencing how Māori have a treaty. Yeah, pretty powerful. And I actually have to say, no kind of boo, get him out like that. Just let the protest happen. I remember Bernie Sanders, when he was trying to be president, he had a couple of women come up and kind of walk in front of him and start talking, and they let them talk, and then they moved them off, and it was quite a good response to someone having their honest held belief aired publicly. And I sort of feel the same about that, actually. What are your thoughts, Joey?
Nothing she said was wrong.
100%.
Like, all the things that she listed are things that happened to the Aboriginal people.
Mm-hmm.
But there's no debate there. They don't have a treaty. Aboriginal people have been treated atrociously in Australia. The other thing that springs to mind is, yes, she's an elected lawmaker and that sort of thing, but she went up there alone.
Yeah, true.
Very, very alone.
Yeah.
To do that. So yeah, well done. Like, absolutely.
The news story.
Agree.
The story here on RNZ says Australia was a British colony for more than 100 years, during which time thousands of Aboriginal Australians were killed and entire communities displaced. The country gained de facto independence in 1901, but has never become a fully fledged republic. King Charles is the current head of state. The senator's name is Lydia Thorpe. Shouted anti-colonial slogans at the King during his visit to the Australian Parliament on Monday, shocked assembled lawmakers and and other dignitaries. I actually think, there's a place for protest, and that may have been uncomfortable, but I don't think protest is supposed to make you feel warm and fuzzy all the time. And there was no argy-bargy. There was no, it seemed like an appropriate protest. That might be a juxtaposition, the word appropriate beside the word protest, but it was received and it was done. The point was made. Now the next thing is what happens from there. Could the Crown even do a treaty with an Indigenous people, 250 years after a country started? I'm interested to think about that.
Yeah, look, and maybe if they ever go down the Republic route, that's something that can be looked at. But yeah, my whole question, I don't tend to think that King Charles is necessarily a bad person, right? But what I would love I would love to have the opportunity to go, hey, do you know what that was about?
Yeah.
What are your thoughts? What is your understanding of what happened here?
Yeah.
I'd love to get that. And because he's a king, we'll never have that opportunity. We just don't know.
I mean, you can look at a situation and go, I wish. That song, I Wish by Skilo. Imagine if he had called her up.
Oh, fuck. Yeah.
I'll hear.
Come here. Have a sit.
Well, not even that, but just like
let's thrash this out.
I'm open to hear your position. I mean, by many in the kind of royal upper class sort of word, he's a bit of a greenie and a bit of a, he's not quite a hemp wearing suit, but that's in that world. I wonder. You say we will never get it, but I wouldn't be surprised if he knew a bit of what was going on. If he knew about it. The question is, what did he do?
And look, there are a couple of comments here in the chat. MB 1968 NZ said King Charles has spent a lot of time at Turanga Waiwai. Raywin here says the king does understand Indigenous rights, and he may do, but I would love to hear it from him. As Pat says, wouldn't that be an amazing moment? As improbable as it is, that he said, no, bring it back in. Let's have a chat.
Yeah,
and this is the thing that like those days of a treaty being between a king rather than the people with the king rather than different independent governments, I guess that those days are long gone.
Yeah,
but people said it's still between the people and the crown. The crown is just now the government instead. I think Australia has a long way to go.
Yeah.
That's not to say that like we're the fucking blueprint, because we clearly aren't, but I think we look at what we're doing and at least there is titiriti there to have some sort of framework. Australia doesn't even have that.
Yeah, like it's kind of it's I don't want to say, because she had all the right in the world to speak then, but the treaty kind of feels like it gives Māori the legal foundation and like the foundation stone to stand on and say, no, I will speak, and I will speak because it says in this thing that my forebears signed I'm allowed to. It might just be like a step up. And I think certainly this country treats it differently. I mean, if you think of all of those countries that kind of now are majority white, with colonized people, whether it's America or whether it's Australia or whether it's us, Canada. I mean, the Indigenous people in those other areas, it's so hard to say are treated worse. I'm not going to say that because I'm not Māori and I don't get it. But it seems that the Indigenous people in 2024 in this country have more of a path to get recourse and more of a path to challenge than maybe in those other countries. Is that okay to say go that far? I don't know. It just feels like it's because of the treaty. There's at least there's a process set up for the conversation to be had. But what we're not doing well is having that conversation. That's what it is. So there's this process set up to go, this is how we have the conversation. This is our agreement. The agreement's just not being worked well today, but it's still there. So let's sort out how to work it well, and then things might be better. I think I found my way to the end of that, maybe.
It's a funny one to talk through, isn't it? Like I have definitely fallen into that trap before of trying to make a direct comparison about the New Zealand experience with Māori experience and Aboriginal experience, and you're right, just recognizing that you don't have the basis to speak with authority on it is sometimes a lesson in itself. There's a few people in the chat talking about how that senator, sorry, I didn't grab her name, voted
Lydia
against
Thorpe.
The Voice.
Did she?
Yeah, so I don't know. I have to look into that, but that is interesting. It'd be nice to know what her reasons for it were.
I'm having a look right now. You could do some super chats if you want.
Okay, let's have a look at what we've got. Sort of looping back to the water meter thing. Jason says Christchurch has meters, but you're only charged for overuse, with the citywide average being set after measuring over a period of time. That seems to be a pretty healthy middle ground. Where'd that go? We'll be touching on the subject later. But our soul says Luxon looked so uncomfortable during the media stand-up today when asked about Andrew Bailey. He's incapable of handling any controversy.
Yeah.
Yep, absolutely. Peter King has given you a yardstick on when we can start referring to you as an Aucklander. More than a decade, you Jaffa.
That will be, check my watch, that will be in about 2 months. So there you go. Lydia Thorpe says voice referendum should be called off and attacks powerless advisory group. Senator criticises push to enshrine an Indigenous voice to Parliament and the Constitution, saying it's an insult to First Nations people's intelligence. Lydia Thorpe has called for the voice referendum to be called off, arguing it is an easy way to fake progress for First Nations people without making any changes. The independent senator told the National Press Club on Wednesday a no victory would reveal Australia as a racist country, despite herself advocating for people to vote no. Thorpe attacked the Albanese government's push to enshrine an Indigenous voice in the Constitution, describing it as a powerless advisory body, window dressing for constitutional recognition, and an insult to First Nations people's intelligence. So I guess what she's saying is it is paying lip service to what they need and want without actually doing it. So I don't know. I guess I don't know. I'm trying to think of a parallel. If someone wanted cannabis to be legalized, but they voted against it because it only legalized it to people over 80 or something, it wasn't the right thing for what I guess at least she was advocating for, maybe.
Yeah.